Hey guys, welcome back to another video. So on Instagram I tend to get asked a fair amount about the gear that I use, so why not make a video about it? This isn't a video to be like, oh, buy this gear if you want to shoot like this person. It doesn't work like that for about 90% of the time. What this is like, whether you're a new photographer or an experienced photographer, I always find it really interesting to find out what other people are shooting with, to see, you know, how they get the results that they do. And it's not necessarily just the camera, it's about the gear that they use around the camera as well, like tripods, filters, mics, you name it. So without further ado, let's get started. So first up, we've got the Canon EOS R. It's what I'm currently shooting with, and it's my main sort of workhorse of a camera. I absolutely love this camera. I've always been a bit of a Canon boy. I've tried out, you know, other cameras, but I always just get drawn back to Canon. It got a lot of stick when it first got released, I think mainly just sort of underwhelming specs, but still, as a camera, it's so good. On the camera, I'm running a Canon RF 24-70 2.8, an amazing lens. Highly recommend this if you're going to get the EOS R or get into the sort of Canon mirrorless range. Next on the list is the Canon 7D Mark II. This was the sort of workhorse I had before I got the Canon EOS R. I now use it as my sort of secondary camera. It is a crop sensor, but that's never really sort of held me back. For some that might be a bit of a restriction, but it's still an amazing camera for a camera that's quite a few years old now. On that, I'm rocking the Sigma 18-35 1.8 lens. It's the closest crop sensor equivalent lens to the 24-70 2.8 that I found. It's stupidly sharp, absolutely love the lens. Only gripe that I have with it is that when you're going from a Canon lens to the Sigma, the zoom ring is the opposite way around. So when you go to actually zoom in and out, it's the opposite way, so it may kind of confuse you a little bit, but it's a minor gripe. Also, it's amazing for video, but if you're going to be recording with audio, the autofocus can be quite loud and it's a little bit on the slow side. So if you're using it for video, just make sure you've got an external mic, or, you know, it doesn't necessarily matter if you're recording without audio, then that's fine, but just something to be aware of. Two of the other lenses that I typically shoot with is the 50mm 1.4 from Canon, which is the EF lens, and then the 85mm 1.8 EF lens as well from Canon. Both really nice lenses. The 85mm can be a bit tricky on the autofocus, I think, just because it's an older lens, and the chromatic aberration on it isn't great. But providing you've got something like Lightroom or something where you can fix it quite easily, it's not an issue. It just means a tiny bit more time in post-production. I do have other lenses, but I don't typically use them, mainly because they're either cheap or they're old, and I just don't need them anymore. I get all the shots that I need with the 4 lenses that I use currently. Two of the lenses that I really do want is the Canon 70-200 RF 2.8 lens. That is a beauty of a lens, expensive but desperately want it. And the other one is the 15-35 RF Canon lens, another amazing lens, but again, just stupidly expensive. I do shoot with a DJI Mavic Air as well. I typically don't use this as much, mainly just because of the UK laws. It can be quite restrictive with the locations that I typically go to, but whenever I am able to, then I bring that along. Next up, this is an audio one. So for the video, I'm actually using the Rode Videomic Pro Plus, not the Rode Videomic Pro. The difference is a few extra sort of features. With the original Videomic Pro, you ended up having to sort of turn it on and off manually, and you had to kind of swap out the batteries. The great thing with the Rode Videomic Pro Plus is that it's got a rechargeable lithium-ion battery in, which is amazing, and it lasts for God knows how long. There have been times when I haven't used it for ages and it's still got tons of battery in. The other thing I absolutely love about this is that when you turn your camera on, it turns the mic on, and then when you turn your camera off, it turns the mic off. It is the smallest feature to most people, but it is an absolute game changer. With the previous mic, you ended up just forgetting to turn it on and off, so you either end up with like no audio, or you'd end up with a dead battery because you've left the mic on. Next up, all of my Peak Design gear. I'm a massive Peak Design fanboy. I'm currently using the Peak Design travel tripod to film on. I do have other tripods from like Manfrotto, and they're great tripods, but in comparison to the travel tripod by Peak Design, it's just amazing. Highly recommend it. It's so compact and portable, but I use it for everything. I also have the Peak Design bags, so I have the everyday backpack version 2 in the 30 litre. That is my main sort of bag that I use every day. It is amazing. There are a few minor things that I prefer on the version 1 bag, but it's a minor thing. I'll go through the bags in another video, but I also use their 10 litre sling. I have their travel backpack kit. I also have one of their sort of duffel bags. basically I own about 90% of the Peak Design stuff. One of my favourite bits of kit from them is their tech pouch. I use that for carrying most of my sort of techie stuff, from like dongles, cables, SD cards, which brings me on to the next one, which is the Samsung T5 SSDs. They are brilliant. I have two of them, both of them are 512GB SSDs. They're so small and compact that when I'm sort of traveling and I haven't got too many SD cards, and I just want to make sure I'm keeping them backed up, they're so small that they just fit into like the two little pockets on the inside of the Peak Design tech pouch. The read and write speeds on them are amazing. I highly recommend them, being USB-C as well. They've just released the Samsung T7s as well, and they do two versions, one with and without a fingerprint sensor. The ones with the fingerprint sensor though, you have to run the Samsung software in order to get them to work, which basically then means I can't use it on the iPad Pro, which is a bit of a deal breaker for me, as I like to be able to switch between my MacBook Pro and my iPad Pro. Speaking of my iPad and my MacBook Pro, I'm running the MacBook Pro 13-inch 2018 model, 512GB SSD with 16GB of RAM. They have brought out some slightly newer models of it since, but it's still blazingly fast. You know, the speed improvements of the newer ones will be obviously a lot better, but I don't need anything, you know, I don't need the upgrade in order to, you know, get faster speeds or anything. What I will look into though is when Apple will move over to ARM based processors. The sort of internal processors on the iPad Pro and the phones are just amazing, so I'd love to see what Apple can do with their own processors. But the other thing that I'm running is the iPad Pro 12.9 inch. I think that was the sort of previous model, not the latest one that's just come out with the LiDAR scanner. It's an amazing bit of kit for, you know, when I don't want to have to carry around my laptop and I just want something with a quick sort of attached sort of keyboard, and it gives me the sort of opportunity to sort of draw if I want to do any sort of Photoshop or retouching or anything. It's really, really nice to use, especially on the go. On the MacBook Pro and the iPad Pro, I'm running Lightroom, so Lightroom Classic on the MacBook, and then the Lightroom CC app on the iPad Pro. I've managed to get them to sync with each other really nicely, as there has been a bit of a weird transition with obviously Lightroom Classic and Lightroom CC, but I've managed to get them to both work quite well for me to sync between devices. I know a few photographers who edit with other tools, but Lightroom is kind of industry standard. My whole workflow is centered around that, so I wouldn't look to change anytime soon. Which, next up, I do actually use a plugin called the Nik Collection, which is by DxO. My good friend Lloyd Evans introduced me to this. Amazing bit of kit. So it integrates with Lightroom, and basically any shot that you kind of finish editing in Lightroom, you right click and you can go and edit in any of their tools. So they have like a plugin for sort of color effects, sharpening, denoising. The plugin is just amazing. Can't recommend them enough, and they've actually just updated their software as well, so I've just gone and upgraded that. But yeah, amazing bit of kit. It's what I use to kind of like get that sort of final polish on my my edits. So that's all the gear that I typically run with. I've got a couple of other lights and stuff, but I'll come on to that in another video when I actually use them to make the video. But if you have any questions about the gear that I typically use, then leave them in the comments, or feel free to message me on Instagram. I'm happy to, you know, answer any questions. But yeah, by no means is this video a go out and buy all the gear that I use. It's not the point. It's just purely interesting to find out what other people use to get the results that they do. So hopefully you've kind of either heard of some sort of new gear or learned about something new in this video. If there's any videos that you want me to kind of create going forward, again, leave a comment in the box below. And until next time, thanks for watching. Like and subscribe if you haven't already. And yeah, really appreciate you coming to watch. Cheers, guys.